Okay, guys, let's jump into it tonight. What I wanted to do tonight is kind of go back into, and this was kind of inspired when I was cleaning out the shed a few weeks back. Maybe a couple of months back, but you find these boxes with cassettes, and as you're looking through those, at first it's like, oh, there's a bunch of garbage to go, but then you start looking through and it's like, oh wait, there's a story behind a lot of these, especially in the early days when we were first starting out. And I wanted to just kind of go around and share some of our early music, some of those early albums, because you look at some of them and you're like, why did I buy those? And that's what I really wanted to kind of get into and have a little fun with tonight, of looking back at some old albums or old songs or old cassettes in this case, and you look at it and you're like, why did I buy this, and did I ever actually play it? So I've got a few of them here. JC, Scott, and Howie are with here. We've got a few people. We've got some more. Denny's in watching there. Thank you for being with us, Denny. And of course, you guys are watching it. So this is a new thing we're doing between Thanksgiving and Christmas, where we're basically going to do a live chat each and every night. So if you want to be part of one of these chats, you can check out the schedule. We publish that over the weekend, and then you can follow me on Facebook, and you'll be able to find out we're going to be talking that night. And generally, we're trying to aim for a 5 p.m. Eastern show and a 9 o'clock Eastern show and a 10 o'clock Eastern show. Some nights we'll have an 11 o'clock Eastern show. And these are basically just groups of DJs getting together and sharing a little bit and then putting it up on YouTube a little later. So let's kind of start out. JC, you've got some stuff there. What do you got for us? Share one of the albums you got there and kind of tell us a little bit about how that made it into your collection.
Okay. This is my first CD that I got. It's
the Cars
greatest hits. It's a funny story because my father used to work for Coca-Cola company. I was in my early teens, and he got a raffle ticket for Christmas, and he got me a CD. No, it was the first CD that I ever CD player. Okay. So I needed a CD. No. I was working a lot with records, but the conditions in my home, it's very humid, so records do not last very good here at my house, no? So when he came that Christmas and told me, look what I got. It's a CD player, but we don't have CDs. So I rushed into the next day I rushed to the department store, and this was my first CD, and I cherish it very much because it's the Cars' greatest hits, and it has a lot of good tracks on it. No?
So do you remember about how much you paid for that first CD?
Oh, it was about like $25 because they were the early ones, and they were very scarce. No,
They were very expensive.
Yeah, it was very expensive. And I also got the Starship Knee Deep in the Hoopla. Those were my first two.
Your
CDs.
first purchases.
Yeah.
Good albums, both of them good albums. Howie, you said you had a couple of them. So what do you have for one of your early albums?
Well, what I mentioned this earlier, but the very first thing that I bought with my allowance money when I wasn't even a teen yet was Hot Rocks by the Rolling Stones. And man, I just love that. I had it in all different formats through the years, and now I have it, of course, digitally. But I am a recovering Baptist. So that tells you a little bit about my upbringing, and, prayer meeting on Wednesdays, church on Sundays. And here I am listening to Hot Rocks. And my mother heard that because we got, yes, some of the songs she was just, she was horrified, and she actually, took the record away from, it was actually a double album, but there are songs on there that later in, like Mother's Little Helper, that's about volume,
Mhm.
you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so pretty much, now Hot Rocks was their very first greatest hits album. And it was from 64 to 71, all the hits they had. And so she explained that to me in later years. So truly was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Really, yes, that
The
album
Rolling
was.
Stones, and Let's Spend the Night Together was scandalous at the time. And
Gosh,
she
you were
didn't
a
even.
rebel. You were such a rebel, Howie. Oh my gosh.
I honestly didn't understand the lyrics. All I knew was that it was the hottest album out. Everybody had it.
Yeah.
And I did a little research on it. It charted for 347 weeks and went
Wow.
12 times platinum. And needless to say, she didn't even bother to listen to it. But I'm other than seeing what was on there, Sympathy for the Devil. You cannot have this, and it was taken away from me. But I must admit, there are some songs that I still play, on occasion, for the right crowd, like Brown Sugar and things like that.
Yeah.
But that was, that was that was the first thing I bought with my own allowance money, and was listening in my bedroom, and then promptly had it confiscated.
You're an early rebel there.
But I did buy an 8-track of it when I did get my license.
Those 8 tracks again.
Scott, you're up. What do you got for us?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I could go back to actually cutting the record off of the cereal box, but
oh geez, I had those too.
oh man. You laugh, but gosh, I wish I still. In fact, I remember what it was. It was the Sugar, and it was off of Sugar Smacks cereal. It was promoted in Archie's, and we cut the darn thing off and played it, and and from there, I just like, man, I want to get more involved in music and listen to it. So 45s were basically where I kind of started,
right?
Because they were affordable.
They were, yeah.
And at the time, and they were when I started getting them, they were 50 and 60 cents a piece. So you can go back on that to Harper Valley, PTA. Put Your Hand in the Hand. There were a lot of songs that in the South that we were listening to, and mom collected 45. So naturally I did what my mom was a single mom. So naturally that's kind of how I went from there. The first album I ever bought with my own money, probably about 76 or something like that, was when Peter Frampton live album came out. That was an expensive album at the time. It was like a $10 album. It was and waited. It went on sale. I bought it. And then just kind of through the years, went through there. When I started driving, naturally, I started out with 8 tracks. I mean, that's what we did. We graduated from 8 tracks to cassettes. But the 8-track stuff, I kind of got in a little trouble with that because I liked Frank Zappa a lot. So I would get a lot of Zappa stuff that parents didn't like, and they didn't care for my Ted Nugent Cat Scratch Fever album neither. My grandmother said it looked like what is that wild man on the front of that album? She really, but I mean, stuff like that. If you go back and look and what you I went from there, from that to Leonard Skinner, and I like the live albums because they were different than what they were playing on the radio. So I adapted a lot of the live, and you remember they did a lot of, Aerosmith did a live album. There were, Kiss did a live album in the mid 70s. There were mid 70s to latter part of 70s. There were a lot of live albums. So I got a lot of compilation stuff, and that's how I got my trade on going, as far as musically, starting from cereal box all the way up to, to buying, vinyl. Probably first CD stuff was like a lot of the believe it or not, classical music on CD really sounded good compared to vinyl when it first. And I listen to classical sometimes, and because it's different. And that's where I got my first CDs, and then went from there, and then all the way up. But I mean, it just look back at everything that has changed in the format of music now, and it's amazing. I still like to pick up an album because I end up reading it.
Yeah, there's a lot of information.
A lot of information on there, but that's kind of how I captivated mine. So, John,
yeah,
it's your turn.
So what kind of, since we've been kind of going in the first purchases, that's going to jump me back to way before cassettes. The first album that I purchased, I'm going to do a quick screen share here, is Hot Butter's Popcorn. That 8-track. That right there is one of, that's not the one, but I bought that from a garage sale, and I think this came out in 72. I was probably 6 years old, so that would have put me because I was in first grade at the time, first or second grade at the time. So Popcorn was the first 8-track I purchased. Absolutely loved that song. But the problem is that there's a lot of other songs on the 8-track, and you just can't get back to that song. And I never could figure out how to get. So it was always this in my head as a little kid. It was this randomness, and I'm sure I drove mom and dad crazy by hitting the track, the little channel switcher, and I probably ruined it. But yeah, I remember when I could finally get back to it, it was like the greatest thing ever because I liked that particular song. So that was my first 8-track. My first LP, or I should say vinyl, would have been jumping ahead to 1982 when Putting on the Ritz came out from Taco. That I went to the local Pomida store, and I took $3 I had, and I went in there, and so 82 would have put me at 12, somewhere in that ballpark. And I went and bought that first 45. I brought it home and played it, and I thought this was the greatest thing. And I was so proud of it. I took it off the spindle, and this was an old record album where the little thing you'd put on the can't think of the name of it, that you'd put on to go from a small spindle to the bigger one for the 45. But it was one that was the tall. It wasn't the little one. It was the tall one because it was on. Anyway, when I pulled the thing up, I cracked the album or cracked the 45. So there was a split in the 45. If you lined it up right and put it on carefully, it would play and you'd never hear it. But if you didn't, you always heard it as it went around. But that was my first album of Putting on the Ritz, and I still, even with the crack, played that hundreds of times before it finally got set off to the side. So. Let's see, Sean, we got jumping in. Thank you, Sean, for being with us. We're just kind of hanging out and sharing some of our old music and such in the early days of our DJing. JC, we're up next. What do you got for our next one?
Well, this, when I started, I went into a quest to acquire, because I'm in Mexico City, to acquire everything that I could, songs that I heard in Casey Kasem's America's Top 40,
Yes.
And I had the opportunity also to travel a lot to the US with my parents, almost 2 times a year. So I prepare all my allowance, to go to the record stores and buy everything that I could, And I found a song that I was looking for, I always like to make mixtapes, especially for girls, That was very popular for me.
Sure.
So I heard a song called "What About Me" from Moving Pictures, which is and I finally got to have the cassette for "What About Me." This wasn't available in any CD for many years. I think I found it in CD about in 1987, no? So that was way back, no? 10 years after this was available, no? This is great, and I cherish it, and I still have it, no?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This is an Australian
I'm not
group. No?
I'll have to. I got to check that one out when we're done here.
Yeah, it was it hit the charts 2 times. One in 1982, and I think in 1989 was a reissue. No? Very nice tune, and and I cherish it a lot, and it will still be here in my collection.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'll have to look at that a little bit more. Howie, you're up. What do you got for us?
I have a triple whammy for you. You all know that I was friends with Lou Reed, and I bought his first Harley from him, and did sound for a lot of these guys in New York City. So I had a lot of Lou. I have everything from Lou Reed on vinyl, and when they came out with the Transformer album, Sweet Jane, I was just blown away with the intro on that. It's it's been voted the best intro of all time. It's like 3.5 minutes before they actually go into the song Sweet Jane. And so I got every available copy that I possibly could in variation of Sweet Jane, from 45s to the full LPs and cassettes for the car at the time. And then in 1988 came along the Cowboy Junkies, and they did a cover version of Sweet Jane, and it's been in several movies and so forth. And what they did was they actually recorded this in Toronto at Trinity Church, and they used one microphone, a stereo microphone, to record the whole band, just one mic. And they did it. The legend is they did it in one day, but that wasn't the case. They had to go and the next day and finish one last song. But the interesting thing about this is it has Sweet Jane on it, which is the name of the motorcycle that I got from Lou. And the very, very first song, it took them so long to do this album because of the subway. And they might be in the middle of a take and you hear the rumble of the tracks and the cars going by. Well, they decided to, as artists do, make a flaw a feature. Okay. So the very first song is called Mining for Gold. And at the very beginning, you can actually hear the subway rumbling by. And they decided, you know what? We're going to leave this in the album. And they did. And I treasure that. I have that, on LP, and I treasure that one. And I really like that version of Sweet Jane as well. But just the fact that they left the subway in there, and that this was done one take for the songs, unless the subway came by, then they would, but that was the only track that had the subway in it, and it was just purely for artistic reasons. So yeah, that's Sweet Jane,
a flaw that became part of the lexicon. That's funny. So jumping to when I got into cassettes, because that we kind of transitioned into that. One of my first cassettes was sports. That was probably kind of an easy one to guess, but in that to pay for those first 11 albums, one of the first ones that I actually paid for full price was from Billy Squire, and it was Enough Is Enough, the album, because I absolutely loved the song Love Is a Hero. This would have been about 86, somewhere in that ballpark. And I thought, this Billy Squire guy, I heard that Love Is a Hero when it was released, and it's like, this is there's going to be all sorts of hits on this album. And I was so excited. And I paid, I want to say $25 or whatever it was for this album. And this has been one that I have never played at an event. I played the song numerous times because I love the song, but it was one of these albums that I bought, and most of them, I have no idea if I actually played them too much or what have you. But this one, I always remember I paid that $25 and I never played it at a show. Thought about it numerous times, but no one ever wanted to hear Billy Squire. They were too busy listening to Huey Lewis, I'm pretty sure.
John, I'll add this in here. I started out as a record collector before I ever became a DJ. And with my allowance, I would buy, I got really into Alan Parsons.
Oh, yeah.
I bought iRobot first, and then backed up and got Tales of Mystery and Imagination, Edgar Allan Poe, which was the first album. Then from there, I went Pyramid and, Turn of a Friendly Card, or actually Eve. I almost skipped Eve. Eve was that they were becoming popular during Eve, really, when, Damned If I Do and Damned If I Don't came out off that album, made them popular. But that's how I got, is where I was collecting albums and playing them before I ever, decided to make a living out of it.
Okay.
Just, I think that being able to do that really inspired me more in music as well. Just to kind of let you know that it started out as collectors, and it sounds like that's what we did. All of us have been talking about how he's been talking about the fact, with Lou Reed. I've got a few of his things as well. And man, I got into really enjoying music, my own stuff. Some of that stuff I don't even play when I DJ. It's
right.
It's my own. I call it my own. Is what I'm really trying to say on that.
Alan Parsons.
Yes.
Yeah, that's. I was trying to think. It's like, has there ever been a song from Alan Parsons that I've played? Cocktail, maybe.
Yeah.
Is there
Cocktail? Yeah.
Something like in a Cocktail time frame.
Yeah.
Oh,
but,
what's the other one?
It was really popular. It's been on commercials and everything, and now I can't think of the name of it.
They used it for the Bulls, the entrance when.
Yes.
I've done that for many introductions, and that's the only Parsons that I've really actually played in an event.
Because
it's interesting.
Yeah, Eye in the Sky.
Yeah, Eye in the Sky. That's it.
Yeah,
it's interesting. You should talk about Alan Parsons. I have everything he's ever done, but he came onto my radar when I had snuck out and went to see Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon tour. And it was actually a baseball stadium, a minor league baseball stadium. And when I saw that show and heard Dark Side of the Moon live for the first time, I said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Wow. I was like, I can do this. I knew that I could do, I can do the lighting. I can do the sound. I can do everything. And I knew what they had. I knew the cabinets. I said, I could build them. And I did. There were the Altec A7 cabinets. They had 200 of them. And they also had phase linear amplifiers, which I bought because I wanted to have their sound.
Yeah, you needed that. Yep.
And then here I find out, I go and buy Dark Side of the Moon album on vinyl, and I'm looking at the credits, which, is cool to have that information, which you don't get from Spotify. Alan Parsons produced Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah.
If you listen real close into Dark Side of the Moon, and you pull it apart, you can hear it in there.
You can, if you know enough about Alan Parsons is all over Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon, yes.
Yeah.
No, I'd have to listen to that again. It's been a long time since.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, this is not something I play out, but it's
yeah.
pleasure listening. But it is, one of the first full-length albums I bought. I would save up my nickels and dimes, and went to a concert, and then, oh man, I had to have that album.
Yep.
That music we used to do and listen to back then, we put our Pioneer headphones on. I saved up to buy a Pioneer.
Whoa, you had the fancy ones.
Wow.
Well, they were
them.
Those were $50 back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I bought them in the late 70s or when I went to work, and I would just sit back and close my eyes and just listen. That's all you had to do. And no distractions, because you didn't have distractions with those back then. It was just you were surrounded by it. It's not like the open air headphones we have today and all that. People don't seem to do that. It's kind of like the guy in the Memorex, the guy sitting in the chair with it, or with the speakers right in front of him.
Yeah, that was Memorex. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Guys, let's make one more round through, sharing one more, and then we'll wrap it up for this recording session. Tonight, if you are watching this on YouTube later, we're doing a little bit different. We're going through and having kind of to open chat nights like this, where we have a topic and we kind of bounce around the room and share a little bit. Dan Carpenter's going to be doing nights. Howie's going to be having some nights. Ben's going to be doing some nights. Mitch is doing Monday nights at 5:00. Let's see, Dan, and then let's see, tomorrow, Rob Peters. I mean, we've got a variety of different folks here on our DJNTV channels who will be doing these kind of hosted nights, and you can be part of it. Just kind of watch the schedule on my Facebook page or the Sunday email, and then jump in and just kind of hang out, join us, and share a couple of stories on whatever the topic is for the night. And tonight, we're talking about some of the old music that we bought when we first started, or we were into when we first started it. So, JC, you are up again, my friend. What do you got for us?
I have a lot of compilations of 80s that I bought, because when I was growing up, it was very difficult sometimes to get the tracks you needed. So when I went to the local record shops, I found the compilations. So I have awesome 80s retro CDs.
Mm-hmm.
I have everything 80s. I have totally 80s.
No, I've had that one.
Another awesome 80s. I have Reflections of Love. So I just got the music bug on me, and I started collecting, gathering. I started to make local gigs for my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I always brought my CDs and we would play them, and I will and I was I realized then that what I loved more was trying to please everybody with the songs they liked, and I discovered that it was something that I love to do. No?
Yeah, nice. Awesome. 80s. Did that have Voices Carry from Till Tuesday on it?
One of them has to have it.
I know.
No, but I have another one. I have here another one that has that song. No?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because that was where the first time I was able to find that on CD was on one of those 80s compilations, and it was one of those things. Okay, so you bought this compilation to get these two songs, and then this compilation had those two songs, but it had this other song. But then then we ended up, that's where we started to cull CDs from our systems, and then those would go into the next DJ's system. So it's like, okay, I wanted the one that had Till Tuesday's Voices Carry. Not that I ever played it. It never got played at a show, but it was like my warm up. I'd play it during that.
But it's a great song. I like that one a lot.
That's in that cocktail time thing. And last year, I bet I played it 8 times during those time frame.
And that these compilations, I like them very much because they're hidden tracks that people love and don't hear anymore. So when you go and play them, they're great.
Yeah. And they were good recordings most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now we're going to go across the bottom and we'll just kind of rotate. Scott, you get what's one more for you that was kind of memorable for you?
Oh goodness. Well, I was into Southern rock, and with Skinner, but we also had our local group called Molly Hatchet, with
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville as well, and then Outlaws, which
Mm-hmm.
in 38 Special, we started
Yes.
getting further and further into. We were really into. I wasn't too much into country because it just wasn't. Not until after Urban Cowboy, and
Mm-hmm.
bought that. It's funny. I used to keep my Saturday Night Fever and Urban Cowboy almost together because, believe it or not, we go back and forth on those. And I actually bought Saturday Night Fever album when it came out. People knew I liked records. Christmas time, I got it from a family member. They always gave me a record.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that's what I liked. And I got Saturday Night Fever one year, being 13 or 14 when that album came out. And I played that thing and almost wore it out. I had to buy another copy actually when, because there were so many great songs. I mean, it was the disco was in and we were into that stuff.
Yeah.
But I liked mine getting back to more of my roots. A lot of the Southern rock was really, you talk about a group called Little Feat.
Oh yeah.
Um, Jay Brandon talks about. I know he's not here, but you heard Little Feat, right? Yes. In fact, I have a couple of their albums. So I mean, just and even when I first picked up the Sport album about Huey Lewis, started liking a lot of his stuff. So
you do have a wide variety of tastes, not only your Southern rock, but good stuff too.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
I have an open mind in music. I will conclude with that. That is my saying is I have an open mind in music when I can go from Parsons to Southern rock. There's a great variety. I keep my mind open when it comes to that. Nice.
Howie, what do you have for us here?
I am going to go the very last thing. Most people know, and if you don't know, I started out doing live sound and lights, and I did the Jersey circuit, but I did my early years, I did New York City. I was house light and sound man at Max Kansas City. And what happened was the clubs, you could go and see a band 5-6 nights a week. And as that waned and they dropped the drinking, or they raised the drinking age from 18 to 21, the clubs, they started dropping off. And here I was working a lot. And then one day the bar manager said, "Hey, look, we're only going to have one band tonight. Can you play music in between breaks?" I started doing that. Then he approached me a little while later and said, "We're not going to have a band on Wednesday nights anymore. Would you come in and play music for the night?" And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Yeah, it's $300. And I'm like, "Wow, $300, and I don't have to split it with 5 other guys."
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good to me. Yeah, I could do that. And I'm like, but I'm going to need music. And I bought the Time Life. It was the 80s because this was the 90s when, as the bands faded out and the DJ thing really started taking off. And I thought, well, this is where I have to go. I gotta follow my heart. And I bought the Time Life series of the 80s, and it was 10 discs. Things like the Eurythmics and so forth and so on, all high energy dance music and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of songs to get me started. And then, so that's where I started buying the compilations. That was the first compilation. So I remember that, and I still have it, and I remember it fondly. And from then on, I bought more and more to build the library, because back then, what else could you do?
Yeah.
So that's how I started to build my library to become a DJ.
Oh, and those compilations when those came out of any sort, whether it was Time Life or the Only Rock series, those that was gold for us.
Oh, sure. And then the Now series came out, and I was like, wow, thank you. You know.
Yeah. The MTV Party to Go, those were huge when they came out. Oh, there's so many things with that. So, okay, my last one that I'm going to share today. This is one of the first songs that I did not want to buy. I hated the song. I didn't like it. This is Bobby McFerrin's "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why I hated it is T-shirts all of a sudden started appearing with this kind of stuff, and they would play different versions of the T-shirts, and it's like, I avoided it. But it got to the point where we were getting so many people. So I went and I wasn't even going to buy the album. I went and bought the cassette single because I was not going to put the money into the pocket. So this probably cost me $2 or $3 to buy the cassette single. But once I bought the stupid thing, it became for a period of time, probably the most played song in the library, because it just around central Minnesota, every party and every wedding, and it's like, oh, can you play that? That's our favorite song. And I cringed at that. Of course, now we're here years later, and it's not so bad, but yeah, at that point in time, it was such a cringe. I hated it.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for sharing some of the stories and such. We'll be doing things like this again pretty much every Monday, Tuesday. Ideally, we wanted to be doing something Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where we have kind of a group, a semi-formal chat, and then kind of an informal and bouncing back and forth. And then on weekends, of course, the chill room, DJNTV.com/chill is open. Do you come in there and hang out with other DJs and tell stories and just have a good time together? So we're going to wrap up this recording. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.